We have an honored guest on Ship Chasing today, none other than Mr. Michael Leone. We are going to talk about some BBM data he's been digging into. I know he's deep into the lab looking to refresh the manifesto, so maybe we can get some sneak peeks of that. Also, maybe go through some ADPs that have jumped the shark this year. And then, of course, we will hop in a draft. This is Ship Chasing with Pete, Ben, Pat, and Leone. Let's do it. Pat Fryer Helmo.
This is why I'm hot.
Anita Hanjob.
Fix your sight.
Jamar Alpha Play Chase. Are you kidding me? Kadarius Toney?
You can't handle the heat.
It looks like we're finally this boys. You're right.
All right, Michael Leone, welcome back to Ship Chasing here. Is this a different backdrop for you? You're in the upstairs office, but it looks
my green screen is like faded, so and I tried to use just the regular virtual background and it looked bad. So we still got some work to do up here.
Didn't you say you were like redoing your basement or somewhere that you were going to have a new office?
There's been plans that have gone through and plans that have not gone through. I did get air conditioning finally installed in my office, so that was a big win. So next step will be I want to get it so I can just have the natural backdrop and not have to do any of the green screen stuff, but we're not there yet.
There you go.
The trick is to have a natural backdrop that just looks like a green screen. That's what I'm going for.
Well, every time people now see a guitar in your background, Pat, they're wondering, is that one of the Rachaad, guitars? That's what we all now are wondering.
That's marketing, man. That's Do
you still dream about it? Is it still on your mind? Is it one of those purchases like me when I had my sauna? Like I thought about my sauna for like 2 straight years, like nonstop, and then finally got it. I mean, does this guitar, create real estate in your brain?
It doesn't, because I know I wouldn't take care of it enough. I'm not in a place in my life where I wouldn't get damaged and stuff. Like I roll back sometimes
pulling on the strings.
Yeah, like I've rolled back sometimes and knock into this guitar. You can't buy like the rarest tone on the planet and then roll an office chair into it.
The guitar you wouldn't respect the guitar enough. This is more about
the guitar enough.
Guitar.
Yeah. No, like this is like literally like this is the only time this wood has ever existed on the earth, and I was like have a piece of that and then like bump into it with my stupid chair. It's egregious. You can't do that.
There you go. Still a man of the people.
If we get you a
Ben
standing desk, you can get the guitar.
Yeah,
much more practical.
And a humidifier. That's honestly.
How about you get the standing desk made out of the Rachaad tree?
Oh, I think they actually have those, so I could do that.
Ben Gretsch, a true man of the people. Did I see on your Twitter you've approached 13 hours of live streaming this week?
Yeah, since last Monday. The slow draft thing has been fun. People have enjoyed it. They've said it's kind of like a new thing, and whatever fills a niche or something, which I think is what we're always going for. It wasn't really the intent. It's just like that's all I'm allowed to do is slow draft. But people have been commenting and been excited to see how the teams are building through the different streams. So I've kept doing them. I've had some time these couple weeks available, and typically doing them while the kids are in school and stuff. But catching up on the same drafts later and later. So I've done 6 streams, and it's like people have seen, oh, this is the team where, I did the Sam Laporta, Trey McBride thing early. And then we had to talk about that on like 4 different streams, so it's been fun though.
That's cool.
Love it. Make sure you guys are subscribed to the Stealing Signals YouTube there and checking out all of that content. I definitely want to dig into a few things before we draft today. Leone, I know you've been playing around with a lot of last year's BBM data. You were showing us some sneak peeks in our group chat that were pretty interesting. What has kind of stood out to you as you've messed around with that?
Yeah, so I'm working on an article where we simulated the finals from week 17 last year. And initially it was supposed to be a short article, but as with most things, it kind of one thing leads to another. So it's sort of like a mini manifesto by itself. But having the sims for week 17 is interesting because you get like to capture the range of outcomes of how all the teams in week 17, like it could have worked out for them. So it's interesting to see like the expected value of all those teams based on their structures. And then also looking at the finals advance rate of like certain structures relative to how the rest of either the entire field played things or just the playoff field. The one thing I was showing you guys, which is kind of interesting, is we know there's a bit of a meta where some of these strategies look really good purely by the data, but we also know that like only sharp drafters are doing those strategies. So it's hard to tease out, like, is it the strategy or is it the people that are doing the strategy? And usually it's a little bit of both, but I was able to actually find some of that in the week 17 stacking stuff. If you looked at all the teams in the playoffs that stacked their quarterbacks like 100%. So if you drafted 2 quarterbacks, they were both stacked with a teammate 100%. Or if you drafted 3 quarterbacks, all 3 were stacked with a teammate. If you looked at that subset of teams to remove kind of like bias, there's the teams that stacked opponents in week 17 more heavily were more likely to make it to week 17 in the finals, which on the surface makes no sense because week 17 has not been played yet. So in week 17 should have 0 impact on making it to the finals, but those teams at like a pretty, meaningfully higher rate were able to advance to week 17. So there's one way to very clearly tease out, like, okay, the week 17 bros, as Peter put it in our Discord chat, are clearly sharper drafters making better teams.
I mean,
Who would like to hear?
What a validation! Last year you proved, or when you initially did the manifesto, that game stacking week 17 increases our chances almost to 50% to win Best Ball Mania. And now you've showed, even pulling away from that week 17 bros are just objectively better drafters. I mean, it's a great time to be a week 17.
We love your research, Mike. Please.
It's cool though, because it also shows those teams had a higher expected value in week 17 itself. So it kind of showed both, like, one, these teams are more like better because the people drafting them are better, but then they're also better for the reasons of the strategy specifically.
There is a potential.
That's it.
Kind of.
That's the new slogan. Knowing that week 17 is all that matters is all that matters.
Ben, you kind of noted in our chat, like, that means like all these micro edges other people are doing matter. And like, that's sort of what I come back to when people push back into week 17 stuff, is like, it's just not that hard to do and do the other things well too, which I think this show like indirectly shows that, like, the people who are stacking for week 17 aren't sacrificing, other things.
Which was the entire straw man against the week 17, is you're reaching, you're doing bad structures just to get your correlation. It's like, no, they're actually doing all of these things and the other little things that add up in the aggregate to give you an edge.
Yeah.
Which is something that, like, when Pat won, that's what we all did with his lineup. We broke it all. Like, Leone, you pointed out how he had written about those exact 2 running backs and 2 RB builds and how they had legendary upside. We talked about the week 17 correlation. We talked about all these different things structurally, how it's like, oh yeah, that's all here. And if you're doing that in enough of your drafts and a big enough part of your portfolio, then it's giving you an edge. Pat wins $2 million.
And Leone, this question from Neil, you showed us a peek of this too, but this is a big part of it. Neil says, are the Sims not just extremely driven by who has the most active players?
Oh, so I looked at non-zero players, basically players who recorded more than 0 fantasy points, even if it was like 1 yard. Basically, did they play that week? Yeah. I guess there's some receivers that could have played and not caught a ball, but the expected value there were 7 teams that had 18 live players out of the 441. Wow. And if we applied this year's payout structure to last year's finals, those 7 teams had an average expected value of $43,000, double that of randomness. There were 6 teams that had only 10 players that were live, and those teams' expected value was like $11,000, so half that of randomness and a quarter of that of the 18-person teams. Kind of the break even was like 14 people. Like, if you had 14 people, you were a little bit minus EV. As soon as you got to 15 people, you got to like very plus EV.
Yeah, I mean, like, I've heard Kevin Cole talk about this, or I forget, it's like some guy doing like front office stuff for Premier League, I think, was like breaking down like how important effects are and everything. He's like, if you let me pick something, I'm taking luck. Give me luck. if I get, if I'm allowed to pick whatever I want luck. And I think here, if you're allowed to pick whatever you want, you pick 18 players healthy, make it to the finals.
That were also the best players.
That were also the best players. That's what you want. But unfortunately, you don't get to pick that one.
Well, there's a minor thing there that we can probably try to leverage, which is, Leone's pointing out that it's just players that scored more than 0 points. And in some cases, people are drafting players that don't get hurt, but are also not scoring points in week 17.
Yeah, it does point to the floor, how important the floor is of getting guys who actually just contribute in every roster spot.
Yeah, and with the Sims, you capture just there's so many scenarios where you just have these outs, like you're playing poker and you've got a runner out, you get outs and you just never know what can happen. And that's actually one thing I didn't look at, but I wanted to look at with the game stacking was the average amount of points. I'm guessing the average amount of points isn't that much higher for the people who game stack heavily versus the people who don't, but it's just that their top end outcomes are better. But I could be wrong on that. There's definitely something, I've said this a million times, but with the optionality of the stacking in best ball, because there's no reason why the bringbacks otherwise would be as valuable as they are. It's more valuable than it is in DFS. I think hands down, which is kind of interesting. And I think Peter, you really touched on it in one of, I don't know if it was your newsletter or Barry's, but just the outlier performances. When a quarterback has an outlier, that's what you're going for, these outlier performances, and you just have more cracks at the outlier performance. It's not the average game, but it's the 5th percentile game, but someone somewhere in the finals is probably going to have that when you've got that many teams. One of the games in week 17 is probably going to pop off.
Right. With the bring back element, I was kind of thinking okay, if I have one bring back on a week 17 game, that's not helping me get there really to the finals. But if I have 3 bring backs, let's say I mega stack a week 17 game, that's actually a stack. Those bring backs are a stack. They don't have a quarterback, but that potentially could help me get to week 17. You think there could be anything there where you're actually adding additional stacks? So, if that offense goes off in week 15 or week 16, it does potentially increase your advance through the playoffs.
I definitely think there could be something there. I looked at even just the number of quarterbacks that had an opposition player. So even one would count, but I do think there's something there where, and I'm not capturing a lot of stuff mini correlations on teams against each other without the quarterback that you very easily, you get a Baker Mayfield go off in a game. You might not need Baker Mayfield, but the skill players are going to go off. So, because people always ask oh, do I have to do this? And I think even though the data is yeah, you should be stacking, I do think you have some wiggle room to just be smart about things. And there's things you can do that we haven't captured directly yet, which is you're saying the bring back is also a stack in itself, or maybe you're just mini correlating without the quarterback in other games.
Yep.
Was there anything else? One of the things I'm super curious to see with the manifesto is if there were maybe any red herrings in the initial data where it's the data from BBM IV is so much different than BBM III, or have you found it kind of validating a lot of those initial findings?
I'm still looking into, I didn't really compare 4 to 3 too much for the final simulation, which I've gotten further on than the overall manifesto. I do think that the way we did the real-time ADP last year was probably a little bit screwed up with the slow drafts. So there's a little bit less signal when I looked at it this year using the projection ADP, because just the way they had the data, I think we were basing it off the draft days, the draft start time. So we were kind of picking up on closing line ADP when we thought we were doing real-time ADP for some of the slow drafts that probably went a month, and the ADP shifted over the course of that month, if that makes sense.
So are you saying you over or undercounted the importance of ADP value?
I think we overcounted the importance of the real-time ADP value last year, because we were kind of saying for a slow draft, if it started on May 1st and the guy's ADP was 70 and you took him at pick 80 on May 20th when the slow draft was still going, you got 10 spots of ADP value, but maybe by May 20th, his ADP was actually 85 and you
in
lost
that
5.
almost the data could have been double counting closing line value and real-time ADP value.
Yeah. So you definitely see that both still matter quite a bit. but there's a bigger
But
discrepancy.
being a
between the
sophisticated auto
closing line
drafter
and
is even
real
worse
time.
than it might.
Huh?
Being a sophisticated auto drafter is even more embarrassing than you might already feel.
It still matters a decent bit. It's kind of interesting how it even mattered, like for the week 17 finals themselves. It wasn't like super correlated, which you wouldn't think at that point it would be, because like all these teams have survived through 16 weeks. They're probably all pretty good. But the teams that were bad, the bad teams in ADP value, both real time and closing line, had the worst EVs, even in week 17 itself. Once you weren't bad, it didn't really matter, like within week 17 itself. But the teams that were bad, like it's still, you could still see it mattered a little bit.
You're saying that because that in my brain, it would be like that whole thing about the ADP value, that would be reflective of the regular season, but then would cease to matter once you had assembled a team that was strong enough to advance. But you're saying it's still hurting you in 15 and 16 if you got that team there?
If you're like if you're bottom 20 to 30th percentile, it's still hurt. Your teams probably are still worse than the other teams, even though they've managed to survive that long.
And do you think that could be attributed to that? It's just like you were in a lucky room where there was a bunch of other bad teams and you were able to sneak this team through, kind of thing?
Or the good players you have are paired up with worse values throughout your roster because they're matched, right? Like the really good players that got you there are matched, and now you have bad combination. You left $5,000 of DFS salary on the table to build out the rest of your lineup with players.
That's a really good point by Ben. Like I didn't look at Laporta's exact ownership, but I imagine there's teams that had Laporta later than teams that didn't in the finals, as him being a pretty popular player.
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, that's I'm excited to see more of this. So the first thing we're going to get is an article kind of looking at those week 17 sims and slicing and dicing that data.
Yeah, and like always, that like major caveat that like a lot of this data is descriptive. Like this is what happened, and it's kind of you got to figure out why it happened. But yeah, that's the first step.
Sorry to cut you off, but there's a couple good questions in the chat that I want to get into before we move on. So Meatwad said, so you're saying get your guys. You weren't really saying that necessarily.
I'm saying that so if you looked at the teams in the finals, the teams who were top 10% in closing line value, for example, were in the finals at like double that rate. Like 20% of the teams in the finals were in the top bucket of closing line ADP value. For real-time ADP value, it's kind of like a little bit
so
different. But once you make the finals, as long as you're not one of the shitty teams, the bottom 20 to 30%, it didn't really have an impact on your EV, but it did on those bottom to 20, 30% teams.
This other one I wanted to highlight was the Utah Sports one that says is a takeaway to really try and avoid handcuffs who might not see the field like Sean Tucker last year. That's something that I've taken from all of your work, Leone, over the last few years, dating back to like when we played in that Fantasy Football World Series together, and you got me on like Marvin Jones at like week 16 or week 17 or whatever it was. But this idea of like usable weeks and those things especially in best ball, where like the guys that are going to have roles matter. That gets back to the how many of your 18 players are actually active in week 17? I've been making this case with Demarcus Robinson on a couple pods this week where I feel confident they went away from a productive in the passing game to Atwell to Robinson for real football reasons because of his run blocking, because of how much they use the wide receivers in run blocking. And then they re-signed him to a $4 million deal this offseason. And they're so 11 personnel heavy that I feel like Robinson's going to run a lot of routes, be out there a lot, had some usable weeks down the stretch last year. Like that kind of a guy in the last round. I don't want to make this pound the table case for Demarcus Robinson, but when it's him or it's like an upside case, and I'm coming off a show I just did with Blair Andrews where I couldn't convince him on Robinson. He wanted to go for the exciting like young dudes. I think those exciting young dudes sometimes like a Sean Tucker or like in my pod with him, we were talking about Elijah Moore. Like, I don't know if Elijah Moore's even going to play with the Browns after they got Jerry Jeudy. I feel way more confident Demarcus Robinson's going to play. I mean, I think that is a pretty big takeaway, right? That Sean Tucker thing.
Yeah, I think so. I think with the running backs in particular, you can talk yourself into these backs that we don't even know if they're the RB2 or even the RB3 on teams at this point. And like, it's such an uphill battle, but it's always hard because like you did get guys like Tank Dell and Puka, Puka by the end of the offseason, we felt better about his role, but
those rookie
like,
receivers,
those guys
I think,
matter
are
so
different.
much.
The running backs and the receivers are different.
Yeah,
to me,
the running backs and the receivers are different. I think that's a big takeaway. To the running back point, like I'd rather right now draft like Clyde Edwards-Helaire in 17-18 than
the Deontay Foreman.
Yeah, and I've was taking a lot of Foreman, and I got just like, you go back to the contract, and this guy gets cut by every team after he was good. So it's like there's never been organizational commitment to him, and worrying about the zero there had me move him down. To me, it's like it has to be an edge to focus on this type of stuff, because the very best redraft players are thinking the other way, right? So it's like it would be very natural for this to become an edge, because it requires the sharp players from another format to shift their thinking, because taking a zero on a 20th round pick in redraft is like expected and fine, and in fact probably good, as long as it's occasionally yielding a huge hit. But consistently taking a zero with your 18th round pick in Ball Mania is a problem. And so I think, and like then having to like sell Blair Andrews or Sean Siegel on like DeMarcus Robinson sounds pretty tough. But I think like those types of like, hey, like he's going to be out there, he's going to be running routes, that has a lot of value. To me, that's where the rookie receivers still do have a lot of value. I know they're getting really priced up, but like Tank Dell, Puka Nacua, like those dudes were a lot more likely, at the very least. It was unlikely to be what they were, but they were a lot more likely than guys around them to be out there running routes in week 17.
It's a good case. Yeah.
Yeah. And like,
and I want to be clear, I was pitching for DeMarcus Robinson on a team where we already had like 3 rookie receivers and like Wandale, and it was a lot of those bets.
You have to defend yourself.
That's exactly what I was going to say, though, is that the balance, like you want some of those guys, you just don't want like 6 of those guys. Right. Like, yeah. And then you run in like, because then even if you get the hit on one of them and you've got 3 zeros along with it, look at the data. Our break-even point's 14 live players. Like if you've 4 spots, even if it is Puka Nacua, it's tough.
Right. I mean, if he's the guy too, like you're like, I found Puka. Well, guess what? Like it's really, really, really hard to make the week 17 final. Puka was getting drafted in like, I don't know, half of drafts at least, right? Or roughly that. And so he's going to be represented in the week 17 final. So if you show up with 4 dead roster spots plus Puka, and other people showing up with 1-2 dead roster spots plus Puka, you're at a big disadvantage.
Yeah.
Yep. Real quick before we hop in a draft, I did think we could kind of talk just a little bit of some ADPs, Leone, maybe anything that's jumped out to you. I'm just pulling up the ADP grid on Fantasy Life here, but I don't know how in the weeds you've been with the rankings and stuff these days, but have any kind of either positional trends or specific ADPs jumped out to you?
So I don't get the George Pickens ADP. Seems pretty early to me. I was kind of surprised by that one.
Yeah.
That one stuck out to me. I'm on a Jaguars kick, but I do not understand Brian Thomas's ADP relative to Keon Coleman and Ladd. It's pretty close, but it being behind doesn't really make it a ton of sense to me.
I didn't realize I'm up to 28% Brian Thomas. I'm clicking the hell out of Brian Thomas right now.
That's
at this point,
because
I've even drafted him, Pat. He's gotten too cheap.
He's too cheap.
I don't like, he was the consensus 4 prospect. He went 4th positionally to a decent landing spot, and now these guys that went 10 picks after him are going before him.
It's all target projections, right?
Yeah.
Like those 2 offenses had more vacated targets. Like it's that old thing, and it's not. I've made the argument that we need to think about projection type stuff more in this day and age. This is a great example of where it's being overemphasized. I think Ladd McConkey's the one that's kind of crazy. I did a pod.
The craziest one. I'm a homer on Keon, but he's with Josh Allen and a team that's going to throw, and they're going to give him every opportunity. Ladd's going to get every opportunity, but not. I mean, it's a good quarterback. But it's more run. I don't know.
Yeah, very run heavy. I was just going to say I did a pod that Rich Rebar was also on earlier today at Spike Week, and Ladd came up, and Rebar made the case that Ladd might not even play in 2 wide receiver sets, and the Greg Roman offense is really 2 tight end heavy and always was, and they brought in Disley, they brought in Hayden Hurst. You might actually see Josh Palmer and Quentin Johnson as the 2 wide receivers in those, like if he's the true slot receiver. So you just said we'll get every opportunity. I've been thinking that all the way up until this morning. And when Rich made that point, I was like, man, Ladd might only be running like 60% routes per drop back if he's just thought of as their slot receiver and he's not out there on 2 wide receiver sets. So he might not actually be getting every opportunity in that regard.
I could see that to start the season, but like if you're I'm willing to fade Quentin Johnson running routes over Ladd McConkey on the outside.
Well, then they got DJ Chark. They got 3 outside receivers, man. DJ Chark last round. Shut up.
I've been taking a Dunze.
He's viable. He's viable.
Yeah, he is.
Dunze and Brian Thomas have been the 2 rookies I've been taking.
I take a lot of Dunze.
I was not selecting like a Dunze at all in the big board in early BBM, and now I feel like I'm taking him every other draft because he's falling a decent bit these days. I mean, ADP, where is he on here?
65 there.
65. I feel like I'm getting him like back end of round 6 a ton.
You can get him behind Ladd and Keon. Like,
oh yeah.
Well, so his ADP is 66.9. He's receiver 65, but he goes 67 or later, plenty.
And he was like clearly in a tier of his own after like Harrison Neighbors and before Brian Thomas.
Yeah.
And like drafted him with those guys.
Yeah.
So
even when Brian Thomas, there's like some Brian Thomas hype that had him going in like, top 12. No one ever floated him above Rome. That was never, even at
Rome
his peak, it was never
more likely to go before Neighbors than Brian Thomas was to go before Rome.
Yes. Yeah. And I mean, like, I especially if you're thinking about the end of the season, Rome Odunze in the 6th round feels pretty good. I mean, I made the JSN bet. This is like the exact same bet, kind of, and I made
it's
that
a completely different bet. It's a way better bet.
3rd wide receiver, right? A prospect we like, 3rd wide receiver. Where are the targets going to come from? I'm not saying it's going to work out exactly the same, but like I guess I'm partial to making this kind of like, I don't know where exactly the target's going to come from, but this player's good.
Yeah, you're not saying that as a negative. I've heard that comparison made so much with the Shane Waldron stuff, and it's driving me a little nuts because Odunze, number 1, isn't a slot. Number 2, DK and Lockett had both played with Waldron for 2 years. Neither DJ Moore or Keenan Allen has played a role with Waldron or in his offense, and they'd both played with Geno Smith for more than a year, like a year and plus, because Geno had played a little the year prior. Neither of the other 2 incumbents have played with the quarterback or the coordinator. It's a wide open top 3. Those 2 were entrenched in their roles in that offense. I think it's like a very different. But I get the way you were making the point was. I'm
willing to throw out because it's the same arguments that people are making, and last year they kind of were right, but this year I don't think. I'm like, even after last year, I'm like, but if you give me this setup, guy I think is really talented 1st round wide receiver, but like where are his targets going to come from? Like I'm just going to bet on that dude in the 6th round, pretty much.
That's what it sounds like Leone's doing with the Dunze and Brian Thomas. And I was going to say that's kind of the correlated thing you're doing is you're betting on the profiles as opposed to the target projections. I love that. I think that's the way to do it.
I also don't know if like in today's day and age with some of these offenses, like if the target. Like I don't even know if, especially for Brian Thomas, if the target outlook is like that bad. It's Christian Kirk and Evan Ingram. Like there's still going to be a 3rd guy. They don't throw to the running backs that often. Gabe Davis runs a ton of empty routes. Like
Thomas's target outlook looks pretty good to me. Like we just had Calvin Ridley, be like I doubt he comes in right away and is like getting what Calvin Ridley was getting, but like. They replaced Calvin Ridley with Gabe Davis. Like Gabe Davis doesn't earn targets. He's a deep threat, occasional deep threat, and Thomas has the chance to kind of be better at that than Gabe Davis, and then also maybe earn targets. He won't be like Ridley, but like he's downfield. He's more of a splash play guy. So, I mean, if he were to earn targets at Calvin Ridley's rate, like it would be an absolute giga smash. So it's just so underpriced.
Pete, what's that 11.1 150D?
This is part of Brick's Draft Caddy. It won't show up on the screen share, but it basically, Brian has data in there of how users drafted within Best Ball Mania. So this is 150 as I did 150 drafts in Best Ball Mania. And then when I hover over it, I can see my average first pick QB. I can see he has a value hound ratio, a scroll the F down. So you can start to see like how likely your opponents are to, allocate resources positionally, reach, etc.
That's cool.
Yeah. Also, I'll let people know we hopped in a BBM draft. We're about to draft from the 4 to make things fair to both Pat and Leone. I did the very egalitarian thing and aggregated the leg up and ETR ranks. And those are the ranks that we have loaded in here. Jamar Chase, is that a consensus pick for everyone here?
Yep.
Alpha play.
That's right.
That's
a great first pick with Leone for this year.
Good.
One of the all-time best moments and all-time best teams we drafted collectively.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, we've had some other good teams too, but Leone, with the Dunze thing, I'm curious about DJ Moore, because when we talk about jump the shark ADPs, that's the one that still doesn't make any sense to me. I think he's going 303 now, but he was going like 210 in the big board before the Keenan Allen trade, and then before also the Adunze pick, and he's fallen like 5 picks since then. I'm confused. Do you like him in the 3rd round?
I think he's like fine where he's going.
Okay.
That can be boring. Just he's fine, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, I got him way wrong last year, but I also kind of think he ran like God last year. So
yeah,
I know it always sounds like you're refusing to take an L, but I think there's like a little bit of both. Like I clearly got some stuff wrong.
Let's double down, Leone. I was with you on that. He only had 1 good game. He had 9 of his 17 games were single digits.
Was it good? How good was it? How good was the game?
It was a really good game.
It was an okay game.
This is one of my I have nightmares of him taking 5-yard passes and then like the defender going for a pick and him. There was a play versus Detroit. I gotta get this off my chest. It was like a 4th and 10 from like the 45, and Chicago lined up to go for it. Detroit jumps off sides, so they take the free play, and DJ Moore scores like a 50-yard touchdown. It was like,
yeah, he did have a couple other good games.
Kidding me.
The Detroit game, yeah. I mean, it was brutal.
DJ Moore season for me,
but dude, he had 9 of his 17 games in single digits in half PPR, and we're supposed to this is your god. Like more than half the games, he was in single digits. That's not.
It was very bad down the stretch after he ran hot too. I'm pretty sure, but
yeah.
He did have Fields out for a bit, so I don't know.
Yeah.
But,
Fields was hurt for a while there. Tyson Bagent.
Right.
Tyson Bagent didn't unlock DJ Moore, unfortunately.
Oh, wow. Hadn't heard that name in a hot minute.
Yeah. We have Moore as wide receiver 21. He's going wide receiver 19. So I'm probably not.
But it does feel hot to me too. I mean, it's just part of it, there's just kind of a tier break there, and to take him over, I have a lot of trouble taking him over a guy like Waddle for sure, and then even Malik Neighbors, I want to take over him. Stephon Diggs, I'm taking over him, and then after that, I'm fine with it.
Right, and then it's Pittman or DK Metcalf, and it doesn't matter at that point. You can take DJ Moore.
I flip, and I pretty strongly prefer DJ Moore there.
Yeah. But my thing is just I look even further down the line, and I'm I still don't even know why. Keenan Allen's been a better target earner than him his whole career. I don't know why DJ Moore is assumed to be a better pick than Keenan Allen in a whole new offense, new quarterback. I understand he was good with the Bears last year, but Keenan Allen's a star as well.
Keenan's also fallen. You can get Keenan in the 5th sometimes, right? You're regularly in the 4th. I'm taking Keenan Allen. I'm taking Rome. It's DJ Moore who hasn't fallen enough. But again, I mean, if he were in the late 3rd, I'd probably be taking a lot.
But would you, if Keenan Allen was late 3rd, would you be taking Keenan?
No, just for the age concerns, and he's the one moving to a new offense, and he was. I don't know if it was it wasn't like Aaron Rodgers, Devontae Adams, but there was a bit of a mind meld there that he's losing with Herbert.
Okay.
All right. We're about to be on the clock ADP wise. We got JT Barkley by our aggregated ranks. We are looking at Taylor, Neighbors, Evans here. What do we think?
Taylor went. We got to make an alpha play.
Neighbors. I don't know. I feel like
I'm
that'd
gonna
be like
Neighbors.
a.
Yeah.
I feel like everybody would be happy with that one.
Yeah, let's do it.
I was waiting to see if you'd make the case for Evans. Evans, a guy I have a lot of trouble taking here.
I like Evans. We have him and Neighbors pretty close.
Okay.
I assumed you guys would like Neighbors more than Evans.
That was a safe assumption.
That was the alpha play I was insinuating.
So, and then also isn't like by ADP, isn't Evans more like, oh no, man, Neighbors' ADP has fallen off a little bit too. So
I'm shocked. I'm shocked you guys are ahead of Pat on Neighbors because you guys are at 20. Pat's on at 24.
Damn. Dude.
Yeah, I remember. I mean, the projections are sensitive. Like I remember we had like docked his TD rate, and then we undid the dock, and like I think you even talked about this with your round 2 players, Pete, about how like everyone can poke holes, and it like shifted him like 5 wide receiver spots, like just
really
like changing that dock on
it's
TD
flat
rate.
as hell.
Yeah.
Yeah, Neighbors.
Yeah,
I'm getting a lot of Neighbors in the third. If like the community makes me take him in a second, I will. That's kind of my
firm in the third, but.
Well, speak of the devil, we could get a DJ Moore share here or Kyron at 3-4. Look like the best picks here.
I've been taking Moore here, but I do take Kyron in the third as well.
Gretch, what do you like?
I'm good. I'll abstain. Whatever you guys want.
I feel like Metcalf, Moore, Kyron, like any of those guys seem fine. I'm assuming. Oh yeah, Achan went before us.
Yeah.
So
let's do DJ
sorry,
Moore.
we didn't help you out on the sticks there, Peter. So good job.
Yeah, and trust me, my brand is in shambles after last week's show. An attack ad was.
So I would have went Kyron there because I do think I get your point, Pat, about where you drop him with the other receivers with Pittman and DK, but I do think Moore is. I think he's the most mispriced player in all of drafts right now. I think he's mispriced by like at least a round, probably close to 2 rounds in a part of the draft where that's a significant amount of capital. Because like if you go through like a projection type thing or whatever, like I don't think you can make a case that like I understand why you would dock Keenan Allen for his injury concerns. I don't think you can make a case that you would project DJ Moore to outproduce Keenan Allen. Like they would be very close. So yeah, dock Keenan for the injury for his individual profile. But like why is DJ Moore
this year, right? Though I don't know. It seems like there's I don't know. We've been having a hard time figuring out the Chicago throw rate. Rookie QB, but then a lot of
that's a big part of it.
Seem to signal that they'll throw more. So we have them throwing more than last year a decent bit.
So a big part of it for me is that I do think with the rookie QB, like you can't expect a huge pass rate.
No, they'll probably be like slightly under
Stroud
or something. Yeah, kind of like Stroud, like annoyingly run heavy at times, but not opposed to passing.
And then they also paid a running back when they had 2 other competent ones on their roster. And I think, I think you're going to get a lot of green zone, a heavy rush rate in the green zone, especially not a huge TD rate in the passing game, which is frustrating.
If we didn't
for them having good receivers.
Yeah, I would have said Kyron.
I could see that.
He didn't have the foot thing. Yeah, I mean, I still think he was fine there, but I would have.
I was open to Kyron. I didn't realize you guys were Kyron there.
Yeah, I was just gonna ask Leone because I've listened to Levitan. He's one of the biggest Kyron bears I've heard. Is he guys in your ear about the Kyron projection these days?
Yeah, I think we just kind of think it's priced in a little bit, but yeah. I still think like from an upside case, like his upside case is really good still. I don't think anyone's expecting him to have the load he had last year, but if it's 70-30 between him and Quorum and he's getting the high value touches, it's still really good.
I actually think he might keep more than I think most everybody does, but that's just because the way they play their offense. Like they don't want to substitute so that the defense can't match. Like,
yeah, he's probably a better pick than DJ Moore. It is as soon as you take a running back, you sacrifice flexibility in these rooms.
Yes,
like especially,
I think structurally the receiver was a way better pick. Yeah. It's just tricky.
Like we get one shot at taking Josh Jacobs in this next pick, and then we're like pumped.
You can't take Josh Jacobs in the 4th. He went in the 6th round of one of my.
I'm getting him in the 5th regularly now. Yeah.
Are you really? That seems like a really good deal. I'm not even being facetious.
No, I take him. I take him
in my draft on Tuesday. Yeah. Mark knows that you got to get Christian Kirk before Leone's on the clock. That was sharp.
I'm with you guys on Kirk, man.
I mean, I would have taken Kirk. Yeah.
Yeah.
it's a money pick.
All right, ETN goes. So by rank, it is Jacobs, Lamar, Mahomes, Pacheco by ADP. Do we want to do like
Lamar and figure it out? If you guys think Jacobs last in this room,
Sure.
like maybe we get Andrews.
Yeah. I'd be tight end, but I'm fine with this.
But I guess you could flip it and do.
You
Andrews
could flip
first.
it, but I'm okay either way.
Yeah,
Okay, either way.
The combos I've seen is more Andrews is the one who falls versus Lamar.
Yeah, by ADP at least that is the way it is, right?
Yeah, but in this, I guess you never know in this room.
Yeah, I was like the ADP. I know you don't know.
Do you like Jacobs a lot, Leone?
I don't like him a lot, but
Here we go.
it is a similar. I mean, he just got a really good deal. It's a really good offense.
Oh,
It is fitting that we're now talking about
exact
ADPs
same
against the
thing.
Shark and making Leone tell us that Josh Jacobs is a good.
I
pick
just
like that.
realized. Oh my god, this just hit me. I was doing Spike Week a little bit ago, the rebar one, and Daigle was on it, and he picked Josh Jacobs as one of the worst ADPs, and literally said "fuck Mike Leone" on the pod. So anyone who listens to that pod,
Oh my god!
I forgot that he said that you were the bull on Jacobs.
I wasn't the bull, but like where we had him in our tiers didn't make sense with our rank, and like Daigle was like almost intentionally putting him down a tier so people wouldn't get him. And I'm like, well,
So
like he
people
fits
would
like
get
he might actually with his ADP falling. I might have to tell Daigle he can move him back down a tier. But like I think he makes like a pseudo hero RB build like pretty interesting. Like if you get him and treat him like a hero RB, it opens some things up.
I went, I think 3 wide receivers or 4 wide receivers, Jacobs and Mixon. That's good.
That's great. Like you know what type of bets you're making. Oh fuck you, super shorty.
You know who super shorty is? That's Steph.
That's
She
Steph.
she had fun with that, bleeding that
Oh
down
my
too.
God. She knew what she was doing the whole time.
What do you guys want to do here? It's wide open.
I want to rage quit Damar Pearson.
Pacheco's fine here.
Where's Tommy Hudson?
Pitts is your last chance to get
Pacheco.
elite
Pacheco.
tight end.
You're
Pacheco's
freaking
fine.
me out. Pacheco.
Okay.
It's scaring me.
All right. Here's the team so far. We started Chase, then went Neighbors, DJ Moore, Lamar Jackson, and then Isaiah Pacheco.
There's some chance we could get Kittle back. It doesn't seem like any of you guys are really as concerned about getting an elite tight end. For me, when you pick in the top 5, the 4-5 turn is almost always a tight end pick.
No, I have 30% Andrews, and I sometimes flip that where I take Andrews first and try to push Lamar around. I usually do that when I have a Texan so that I can get Lamar or Stroud. In this situation, it's a little easier just to go ahead and take Lamar. But no, I take a lot of the elite tight ends, and I generally agree with you.
I do too. I just feel Lamar's the unique one where it's like once you take that, it's basically you're hoping Andrews comes. Otherwise, I feel like you spent that bullet on the elite quarterback, you know?
Right, but even after he went, I would have went Pitts over before going Pacheco. And we did a lot of talking about Jacobs as an anchor running back in this range. Like I just wouldn't take a running back in this range because you can get some like there's running backs I want to take in the 17th round, and there's not any other position that I want to draft.
Yeah, I don't really view Pitts as part of this group. I view him as kind of part of the Kittle group.
Sure, I do too, but you're not going to get him to come back to you in the 6th, so you're not taking a top 7 tight end at that point.
You might get Kittle.
I'm not
You might get
forcing
Kittle.
the elite tight end as much as, and I feel like I'm on an island because most of the sharp drafters I know, like Herzig, I've seen you guys talk about it a lot, are forcing the elite tight end. But like I'm perfectly comfortable this time of year taking 3 late if it comes to it.
Okay. Yeah, I agree with that, Pat. It would feel a little bit more like forcing, and that's the right word, forcing Pitts there. And he ends up going 55, which is still well ahead of his ADP. I don't think he usually even goes that close to where we were picking.
Yeah, Sean and Jacob Sanderson have got me kind of back on Bowers, which is another way.
We don't do the thing where we talk about targets before they've come off the board.
I've stopped myself a few times. I want credit for that.
Streaming, no. Talk about anything. Talk about
I
Mark
put it in
Andrews.
private chat.
Well, I mean, if you take Lamar in the 4th, is it a streaming concern that you probably want to stack him with Andrews after 3 quarters?
That one.
Is it that giving it away to the streamer?
All right. All right, let's get back on track.
Pacheco is a guy that I've wanted exposure to at these prices, but because of the dynamics that Gretch is talking about with the elite tight end, it's just been hard for me to get to. So I like being able to grab a Pacheco share here.
I try to get these guys in the 5th. If that, like, to me, like, okay, Andrews goes, instead of trying to get to the next elite tight end, that's where I'm like, all right, is there a running back here that isn't usually here that I think is kind of not worth it in the 5th? So, or in the 4th. So ETN, Jacobs, Pacheco, that's like where I'm trying to get those guys mixed into my portfolio, like letting the market kind of tell me to take them when they come to me here in the 5th.
Mm-hmm. So we see here's our run of rookies. We mentioned the Brian Thomas team here. Keon Coleman, now Brian Thomas went ahead of Ladd. Mark's a ship chaser. He was never not going to take George Kittle there. I could have told us that. Let's see here. Speaking of ADP fallers, we do have our Rome here. Rachaad White,
Rome,
Godwin, Addison.
Rome wasn't built in a day, Pete.
Our stack here. I'm good with Rome. I'm sure I'm higher on Rachaad White than you guys, but in this room in particular, I feel like Rome's probably the right pick.
I think Rachaad White is a perfectly fine pick at this price, but I feel like Pacheco's, you don't have to take him. Like we already did the thing, so let's get Rome.
Well, and we have DJ, so we're
right.
And we know we're in a receiver heavier room, right? Like we know that.
Yeah.
Yep. Rachaad White, I feel like we're going to see an ADP correction on Rachaad White because almost every single draft I'm in, he's been falling a good bit lately.
Somebody just called him a league winner in the chat.
That guy's having a tough.
What, from 2023?
Tough
I guess you could probably say it was a league winner. Yeah.
Except he still wasn't.
He
was RB6 in total points and RB14 in points per game in FBPR because he was just like a 17 game volume play, like the same trick that always makes people think that the guy's better than he actually is.
I kind of think he's not as bad as people think he is. But
I think he's pretty bad in the 5th. I think in the 6th, it's like there's a tier break at wide receiver. Like if you're giving up any opportunity cost,
I don't think he's as bad as.
Get ready to learn 2024 dead zone backs, buddy.
His advanced stuff in the rushing is really bad, and it was really bad.
It is. It was every back though. Like I think a lot of that stuff's more of a team stat than people realize.
Yeah.
Like look at any back they've had that's gotten a carry. Not that they're good backs, but they shouldn't all be bottom 5 in everything. Like what are the odds they've had 6 straight running backs that are the 6 worst running backs in the league?
I mean, I think that is what's happened though. Like Fournette didn't get signed by anybody, like, and then he couldn't like pass Latavius Murray. Like these guys they're out of the league.
Doing Rachaad White in the 7th.
Yeah,
I mean in the 7th. This is the Josh Jacobs pick from that previous stream. You guys all hate it, but like what? There's nothing.
No, I'm fine with it. I'm not taking this L again. I'm not taking the L twice.
I would take JSN over him every day of the week and twice on Sundays.
I mean, Rachaad
especially
White
in this build where we already took a QB and a running back, and Rome's our 4.
Well, you got your 4 wide receivers in the first 6 rounds. Like, and the other thing too is we're gonna like the wide receivers late more too. And one of the things I looked at, we didn't talk about like in the manifesto stuff, but people, especially in these wide receiver heavy rooms, one of the ways to beat those rooms are to stay wide receiver heavy early, but then just not draft as many wide receivers because the rest of the people in the league hit diminishing points of return, and then we beat them at the other positions.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I mean, you can't get locked out at receiver, but your goal is to find those values. There's by all the receivers getting pushed up, some kind of crazy value is going to shoot to the top, and your job is to catch that value and put it on a team that still has enough wide receiver firepower to advance and then make noise in the playoffs.
Ben loads our team. He loads it.
Yeah, no, I don't draft any of these players. No, what I loathe is this comment from Crutches where he's like, Gretsch streaming too much with Sean. I'll never beat these allegations. I've been as wide receiver heavy my whole career as an analyst, but it's always like, yeah, no, I just got this from Sean. Like, no, dude, go look at my 45 slow drafts. They're all wide receiver heavier than this.
Yeah, but Sean's probably in your ear on those.
It's always fucking Sean. Like, Jesus Christ. I know he's like the most famous fantasy analyst out there, and I do a ton of
taking that
content with
comment
him.
the wrong way, though. I mean, I'm sure when the two of you get together, you're even more wide receiver hungry.
Yes,
like, I don't think he's.
I
saying
maybe
that
am. I maybe am.
From Sean.
The irony of that is my drafts with Sean have been just absolutely scary wide receiver thin. They are hitting the 4 wide receivers early, and then it's like essentially punting it until round 13. Like I have felt way exposed with my wide receiver rooms with Sean lately.
That's
well,
funny.
you really don't want, and I'm still drafting too many receivers and adjusting, but like when you start drafting them early and then you also draft 8 or more, and like 38% and like almost half the field is drafting 8 or more receivers, like that's how you beat them, is by stopping at 6 or 7. Now this is probably a build where we're not stopping at 6 because we didn't go quite, wide receiver times 4 out of the box, but we did go wide receiver 4 out of the first 6 picks. Like you probably don't want more than 7, even though it's going to feel like we want more than 7.
I've been pretty skeptical of that argument just for like the spike week, get players into my flex. Not even like spike week, but like who's going to give me like 15 points and hit my flex in the playoff weeks. Like I want extra bullets at that. And to me, the wide receivers are going to kind of give you a better chance at that. Some of the running backs later are more like, I hope you're like the guy. Like I hope, the contingent value comes through. Like this is like a really, really undervalued pick, but just like, more shots on goal at like 13, 14, 15 points to help fill out an otherwise really strong lineup. I think that 7th, 8th wide receiver is pretty valuable there.
But that's
what's happening in the one-on-one.
Running back now is understanding.
I've been trying to bring it up, but we've been having side conversations. Yeah. Yes, everyone's losing their mind because the one hole took Baker Mayfield at 72. It's another drafter who has been rugged by the Davis Maddox star method. They had Mike Evans at 24. They took Baker. And now they get to
Is this an attack ad on the Davis Maddox star method? From you?
We are firing back. I mean, so many lives and teams have been lost with the star method.
Oh no! Oh God, Najee Harris. Oh, thank God he wrote.
We could do Burrow with Chase, but Burrow. I mean that's a lot of capital to spend. I'm also
we got
Caleb coming, so too.
I would do like a Lockett, Sutton, Samuel.
Lockett, so that's Chicago stuff. I like that.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah. That
Any thoughts, Gretsch? Do you have a receiver you like?
Yeah, I would. Sure, or I'd be tight end.
Start.
Receiver or tight end. Because if we're going to take Caleb coming back, we maybe needed to hit tight end there.
Yeah.
Well, we
don't.
We're just going to take 3 late tight ends. We already talked about that.
To take Caleb.
Yeah, Caleb.
I don't think Caleb's a priority.
Okay.
Or I would say I would be down to push him. It's just tough with the Lamar pick. I feel like we're going to be.
Lockett was a good pick there to recover from our terrible running back picks. That's how you get back on track. You got to fix the bad build with a receiver pick there. 10 picks ahead of ADP.
I was really hoping you were going to dog on his age. You get the way that you skip all the.
I draft Lockett.
32-year-old. Yeah.
I draft Lockett as my wide receiver 6 to make sure I get that 6th thing locked up. But he's our 5.
I think he's a good 5. Like I'm trying to have these kind of guys like Sutton, Lockett, Samuel, Mike Williams. I guess I'd prefer them to be my 6th, but I'm okay.
You're going to talk about how we're already going to probably take 2 shots late on guys and rookies that we're gonna like.
No,
like,
can we please do Brock Bowers?
Let's do Bowers. Let's do Bowers.
Definitely Bowers.
All right.
You okay with that, Leone?
Yeah.
Alpha play?
Say it,
I don't know
Leone.
if alpha play, but
come on.
Leone saw that. Leone was thinking of that picture with Gronk. He's like, doesn't I know?
Leone, did you see the talk that they're going to give him carries? Can I read you his collegiate rushing line? 19 career carries, 193 rushing yards, over 10 yards per carry on 19 carries, 5 touchdowns as a tight end. That's as alpha play as it gets, man. He's Mike Allstott.
I tried to make the bear case with Jacob that they were going to be running 11%, they're going to run an I formation at the goal line. And so there's only one tight end on the field. and that's probably Mayer, right? And then someone in the comments was like, the fullback's probably Bowers, though.
Yeah.
Like,
Or the
you're
halfback.
actually right. Yeah, or the halfback.
I do think Bowers is like priced at a good spot to get him now. I was not in on him until recently. I'm still like, our ranks are behind ADP on him, but I definitely get it from like an archetype standpoint. Like he's the type of player I'll reach for to make sure like I have the right balance in my room, which is like, we know we didn't take a tight end early. We're going to be hurting for some upside. So like, let's reach on. I know you guys don't view it, but even if you do view it as a reach, I think it's a fine reach.
It's a reach from a
Makes
projection standpoint, I think. Like, it's going to be hard. Like, how many routes does he run? Like, you know, he's not going to be the number one. You know, Adams is the number one. Is he even the number two? Like, I think there's real red flags, but the profile, when you just zoom out and you're like, this is arguably the best fantasy tight end prospect ever, and we're getting him in like the 9th, 10th round.
Well, isn't this the same thing with the Rome, right? We're just saying this guy is so good. Yeah, there's target competition, but he's going to get his because he's that good.
I mean, it's a little different, I think, just because of the position historically, and he also got drafted after Rome, and also, you know, the quarterback play is likely going to be worse. So I think it's a little bit different.
You didn't get drafted that far.
Not totally different, but a little bit.
Yeah.
But you're getting the price discount now, which is
I mean,
hard to argue.
I don't think it. I think it's better in the sense that when you look at the Raiders depth chart, you have Devontae Adams, who earned 175 targets last year. You have Jacoby Myers. Right now at our lads, they're listing Trey Tucker as the other starting receiver. You have Michael Gallup. You have Jalen Guyton. I know Michael Mayer's there at tight end, but like Brock Bowers to me is immediately a very clear top 3 pass game weapon, unless you're putting him behind Mayer, which I don't think anyone is. There's no third receiver in this pass game. So I actually don't see it as much like Rome, where I think there's plenty of room for a rookie to elevate in this type of depth chart. I like not thinking about it positionally, thinking about it like in terms of him being a tight end, but in thinking about it in terms of like the group of pass catchers. I kind of like it.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I don't know if I trust the Raiders to view it the same way.
Fair. They might just give
either of those that's fair derogatory, or we're both non-derogatory.
I am wearing my new That's Fair pocket t-shirt as well. You can get it. Caleb Williams falling big time here, guys.
Now, Pete, when we're on screen, we don't talk about guys.
I like Derek.
What the hell, dude? What the hell?
I like Derek so much to take Caleb Williams on.
Call me out. We're 1 pick away.
No, they're actually going to time out and take the top ADP value on accident. That's the worst part.
Oh my God, Pete.
Oh God, it just happened.
It just happened.
It doesn't matter what I said. It was an auto timeout.
Or this person is an incredible troll.
So wide receivers pretty wiped out here, except the aggressive Palmer ranking from our ETR friends.
Palmer's fine. Goddard's fine. Chase Brown's fine.
Leone, who do you like for this team?
Oh, Chase Brown's good.
I liked all of a sudden we get a 2. I like Goddard.
Okay, last second.
And being done at tight end.
That is fun. Now we're done.
Yeah, that's fine.
I like that. Yeah.
We saved the tight end room.
I mean, we got 2 guys at ADP. One guy you guys really like. One guy I really like, and I think
one young.
I think this group of so I think the elite tight ends are unique this year, and that because there's 7 of them, they're cheaper than they should be, and they're really good profiles. I also think the Ingram, Njoku, Bowers, Goddard are all like really good as that next step down. I don't think they're in that same tier with the Kittle and above. I don't understand why Jake Ferguson's in there. He's the meme where like it's the clown.
Oh, I love Jake Ferguson.
Well, I just
Ferguson's like a much stronger pick than Njoku. He's likely the number 2. He gets used a ton at the goal line. It's a much better offense.
Did Javonte go? Isn't that Ben? Don't you like?
I don't understand. Why are you out on Ferguson?
A while ago. Never mind.
He's just there's no. I don't think there's much. We're almost on the clock. We can talk about it.
We're on the clock here. So ADP, there's a few of these running backs here. Trevor Lawrence unstacked. Edwards.
Spears is a fun one.
Spears looks good.
think he's a good third running back. I don't think we need like the Gus profile on this team.
No, we want Spears to take over late and dominate, and we got early weeks covered with Rachaad White's 12 points per game.
Exactly. He's a bridge.
That ends up being 16 points, and then we could go back and say but this is rewriting history because this time we didn't jump the shark, right? Or no, we did select Josh Jacobs on the jump the shark.
I think we did.
We did.
We did. Team was still
we just all hated it.
Broadly, my point there was just that this other group of tight ends is also a nice spot to be in. If you get two like this, that we did well there. The chat is asking why I don't like him. I don't like him because I think he's just a heavy routes play. It's something we've talked about in the past, but like he was good last year, but 18.4% targets per out run and 522 routes. Ran a ton of routes, didn't actually earn a ton of volume, even in a pass game that was thin last year. He's like not probably super talented, and I don't know that there's like he's going to be a small win player. I know that there's going to be targets for him, but there's no like huge win potential. David Njoku,
he gets used around the goal line so much that I think he does have huge win potential from a spike week perspective.
Just touchdowns, 10 touchdowns.
And they're just going to have some really high pass volume weeks. Like, I mean, the playoffs was such a huge outlier. I was so annoyed. I did an AMA because we're behind ADP on Ferguson. And like, that's like one of the questions we get most frequently. And I'm also not like super in on him. And everyone's like, did you see what he did in the playoffs? And it was like such a crazy game script, but Dallas will throw a ton, on the right given week.
The other thing about Ferguson, and obviously that's a huge outlier, but like one of the reasons I was intrigued by him last year is that he got used a lot on play action when Schultz was there. And then he was used a ton on play action last year. He's a good blocker. He's a good run blocker. He's out there for all their goal line stuff. But, and then it's marginal, right? It's like, it gives you that chance of having those like multi-touchdown weeks because he's going to be out there for all their goal line package stuff. But I do think it's like, in addition to having a clear path to the number 2 target earner this year, like
at his cost, all of this is just telling me he's like a small win type. And basically part of my thesis here is the top 7 elite tight ends are going. There's a lot going to be more tight end scoring this year. And these other guys like Njoku, who had the best yards per out run of his career last year, best targets per out run, had a career year. Bowers, with the profile that he has, have the potential to get up to that range. And that if I don't get the elite tight ends, Ferguson's like drafting a weak, small win at a premium that can't catch the guys that I didn't draft earlier. I'd rather just go a different position, basically. Like, it can work, but I'm not saying he's like a bad. Yeah, I don't know. I think
he's got the. My only pushback is I think he has
that
single week upside that you're looking for.
Exactly.
I'm behind ADP on Ferguson, but I do think he has a single week.
Sure, you guys can make a good case there.
Sharbs, yeah.
Sharbs or Lloyd,
yeah. Week 17.
Yeah.
I like.
I don't disagree.
Double Seattle.
To me, like once Kittle's sort of the expensive Ferguson, where you're playing for single week upside, he's going to disappoint you a bunch. Engram's like the premium guy who you don't get the single week upside from really, but he's going to be out there catching a lot of balls. He's like going to help you probably advance and stuff, and then like, I don't know, to me, the guy I struggle to take is Njoku. So I'm like, they trade for Judy, they extend Judy. We're not like super excited about the passing game. A lot of his production that was really fun was with a different quarterback. And I don't think he's that good. Like no one thinks Njoku's an elite, as from a talent perspective.
I think he's better than Jake Ferguson.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't, but the situation is so much better for Ferguson.
But probably better than Ferguson. I would not argue that.
Yeah.
Do we want to go with a rookie wide receiver here?
I mean, I do.
I don't care.
I mean, I don't think it's a quarterback. We're done with tight end. I like any of these rookie wide receivers. Does anyone have a favorite?
Pearsall.
We do.
You what?
I would say Polk or Burton, because Burton we have Chase too. We didn't do the.
I'd go
do you have a favorite?
Burton.
Probably Burton.
Ooh. We're back, baby. Nimble fingers are back. Make an attack ad about that.
Oh man.
I like that.
So
I like that Bengal stack without Burrow there.
Yeah, that's nice.
Sorry. Anyways, keep going. What were we talking about?
We're talking about Njoku Ferguson.
The
The chat is really into it too. So I'm just
Dude,
gonna.
Ben, people love Ferguson.
I'm gonna move on from it. It's all Pat's fault. Like this is all legendary
no,
upside.
no.
Pat's the biggest market mover in the industry. We got all his whole audience in the chat.
Check the ETR.
If you feed him stuff since February, they're gonna believe you. They all got bags of Ferguson. Of course they're in.
All of our subs that are maybe more on the more casual side that probably aren't like sub to leg up love Ferguson. Like Ferguson's
That's wild. I don't get it.
And that doesn't mean he's a bad player. I'm just saying he's a very public. Like people really like Ferguson. I think
the Njoku thing, a lot of what Pat said about Njoku, I wouldn't really push back on. The thing about the Flacco stuff, I hear, but it was a role change for him. It was like his ADOT went way down. They used him on a ton of block and release dump offs, and he was like really good at that. And suddenly his targets per out run spiked. It wasn't like Flacco was looking for him as much as Flacco was a dump off guy. But as much as like that really seemed to unlock Njoku instead of having like the outlet receiver in their pass game be a running back. It was always Njoku catching the ball at the line of scrimmage. That's why his ADOT fell to 4.8 last year, which has never been anywhere lower than that. And he got a ton of targets late. And I know like a lot of that is, again, like Flacco likes to dump off. But I would assume that the Browns would look at that and be like, oh, this actually worked really well. We got the ball out to Njoku shorter on the line of scrimmage, and he's better on an outlet than a lot of these running backs. He's huge, fast, can jump over linebackers or run through them. Like, I actually think he adds a lot in that type of role. I'd be surprised if they don't do a lot of that again this year, if he doesn't get a lot of those low, cheap dump-off targets.
Yeah, I would not be surprised if they move away from that because they bring in Judy and because they bring in a new offensive coordinator.
But Judy's not running that. That's a dump off. That's a late progression dump offs. Judy's running downfield.
Well, if it's late progression, maybe they're getting open a little. Maybe
that might be fair.
In the progression, and then the OC is probably the bigger thing, right? Like you're counting on a new person to do a very specific tight end role. It's not like it's super common.
Who are these fucking sickos with Rashad Bateman at 160? God,
that really fucking stings.
You guys are missing that. Dallas Goedert just churns out 19 to 20% target shares like clockwork. Plays with a good quarterback.
Rashad Bateman.
I'm taking Goedert. Goddard's one of the reasons I don't really take Njoku because I'm like, whatever.
Just wait. You take Dallas.
Wait, I'll take Dallas.
Don't take Ferguson. Don't take Njoku. No.
So structurally here, guys, we're at a 1.462. Definitely doing at least one more quarterback.
We maybe should have taken Polk just so we could have backdoored May.
We also have Gino still on the is he gone now? Nope, Gino just went. Okay. So
we could take Gibson. We could take Gibson and backdoor May that way.
Or there's two Broncos receivers if Pat can maybe realize there's another rookie quarterback out there.
I'm just following Leone's lead here.
There's no Browns receiver, is there? Because like this is objectively like a good value on Watson, but we're going to be really.
It would just be backdoor Elijah Moore.
I don't like it with the uncorrelated Lamar either.
Right.
I think we take Troy Franklin or Mims. I think Pete's right.
Yeah, I like that. Do you guys have and it's against our Cincinnati Denver stuff. Gretch, do you have a preference on these two?
Mm-mm.
Okay, let's do it by ADP. Yeah,
I think I would. I'm really worried about Troy Franklin, but
yeah, I think Mims should go first, but Franklin is fun.
I was too slow to react to that.
Franklin is fun if you're specifically setting up the Bo Nix backdoor too, because you're like, you actually are betting on the shower narrative there, not just like a bring back on a Cincinnati thing.
Yeah. Yeah, we also have to watch out. The Knicks has the same buy as Lamar.
Oh god,
she's an issue.
So does Drake May.
So does Drake May. No.
So maybe
we got to do Daniel Jones. That's the other one that you can do.
Yeah, well,
Wandale and Daniel
we
Jones.
might need to just
Daniel
bet on
Jones has a
Jones.
buy called
Now
getting
Steph's
benched for
taking
3
Watson
weeks.
because she has Njoku and only one
Dude, this
quarterback.
Watson value is pretty good.
No, Steph's taking Watson. She has Njoku and only one quarterback.
I'm just giving her credit. Can I give her flowers for that?
No,
No,
it's not. I mean,
she stole Andrews from us. She gets nothing.
Oh yeah,
no,
that's
she
true.
gets nothing. Yeah. So the other quarterbacks here, I mean,
Dude, I almost think just the way this team is that we should be betting on Danny Dimes.
Danny. Yeah, we could do Wandale and then set up that.
Yeah,
too.
that's smart. That's smart.
I have like no dimes, but it just seems like we've put ourselves in a corner, and that probably makes
There was
sense.
actually a pretty bullish Dimes report I saw today. It was basically just saying that Drew Lock and Danny DeVito looked awful, and that there's going to be no
Danny
competition.
DeVito. I bet Danny DeVito looked all.
There's just like so many ways he doesn't start by the end of the year, but
Yeah.
He's not. He's like not starting at the end of the year, right? Like they have to make the playoffs for him to be starting at the end of the year.
Daniel
I don't know if
Jones.
I make the playoffs.
Now you know how it feels, Steph.
I
Enjoy it.
The injury
think Daniel
guarantee.
Jones is probably going to play the whole year. Why they have they want to get a look at Drew Lock?
They have
It's like
injury guarantees in his
guarantee
contract.
stuff.
It's the Russ
That's all
situation.
fucked, and it's like
2026 here, let me pull it up. $11 million of his 2025 salary fully guarantees the 5th day of the 2025 league year. $23 million of it is injury guaranteed at signing. So he's getting his ass benched the instant they're out of playoff contention.
I've been drafting a bunch of him.
So I know maybe Rachaad White wasn't the best guy to do it with, but I do think like in these rooms we're able to pivot to these backdoor stacks because we are good at running back. We can take extra receivers now.
Yeah. I think we could still do a fifth.
I think we do a 5th.
We should
but-
probably do a
running back.
5th, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, that's a fun thing, when you talk about specific things where it's like if you want to do Lamar with a late round quarterback, which makes sense, and then Drake May and Bo Nix are off the menu for bye weeks, it makes it harder to do
it does.
the Lamar.
It does.
That's I know I'm still rusty with the bye weeks.
I had this set up in a slow draft and I kept pushing Bo Nix but I had set myself up. This is like you do this in a slow draft, like you can't, you're like, damn it, I didn't know like 10 days ago. I didn't have the bye
I did
weeks
the
memorized.
same. I think I have the exact same thing. I have a Lamar May, and I think I took Russ in like round 18. Like I had
Wow.
Jalen Warren.
Is Russ
just-
gonna make it to week 14?
I don't know. I was like honestly like flipping a coin.
I just took
between
Knicks,
Russ
man.
and
I was like,
Jalen.
whatever. Like, I'm gonna eat the bye week and hope I get through.
I thought about eating the bye week, but like my team was set up pretty good, and like the running back I wanted didn't fall, and I was like,
Yeah.
I'm gonna just hope I could pick the right Pittsburgh quarterback.
Yeah.
But then you took Russ.
I've basically been flipping if it's a team where I like really think I need upside at quarterback, I take Fields every
Yeah.
time. But if
Fields
it's
is
a team where
fun.
I'm like, I'm just hoping he stays the starter and gives me some points. Like I think Russ is probably favored over Fields to be starting in week 14.
Did you hear what happened to Davis?
I would.
his
It's
big things
close.
have been
I'd easily wager. I'd bet that if you were giving me even money.
on
Even
what?
money to start week 14.
Yeah.
Justin Fields. Or,
Well, I guess with injuries, maybe I'd still take even money. Yeah, I'd take
Okay.
even money.
all right, I'll do that.
Fields versus Russ, week 14 starter.
Yeah.
Pat, you're
It's
on the
neither of them.
Fields side?
Nobody wins.
I'm on the field side.
Yeah.
I'm on the side of fun and joy. Mike's on Russell fucking Wilson's side.
He's
I
just
told
bag
you I
defending
take-
that
I
one
take
team he had to
Fields
draft him
if I
on.
need upside, but I mean, objectively, if there was a betting market for this, Russ would be favored. All right,
Do
let's
you want to do it? Let's do it.
$100.
$100.
If it's neither, nobody wins.
If neither, nobody
You guys-
wins. Yes.
Do you guys have a running back? I mean, is this where you do the Keaton Mitchell thing?
Ooh, that's a good.
That's
not a bad
interesting, yeah.
idea. It
Yeah.
kind of fits this team.
It fits
He's been
the team
dropping
pretty
a
well.
ton on the injuries.
I also think Likely is someone we can consider here.
I was gonna say we should do one of Likely or Devontae Walker.
I agree. We need to have some
I
kind
think
of
Ben prefers Devontae.
Well, Likely just
Likely
went.
goes-
Likely just went. Yeah. Okay. I would. Okay, yeah.
Do you guys have a preference? Gretch, any thoughts?
Why don't we just take
No,
Walker?
I'm good either way.
That's what-
Walker's a good pick. Yeah.
I think we probably should at this point.
Keaton Mitchell's
what's the
a good
opportunity
pick.
cost?
Yeah, let's
Yeah.
take
We can try to get both of them.
So I currently now have a bet that I did not get it in good on with Sam Sherman, who does Field start week 1. I have the yes on that, and now I have.
What odds did you get?
Oh, this was back before all of the stuff happened, so it's even. So it's just a terrible bet that I made. Now I have week 14 with you, so I'm just going to try to get every week of the season. So if you want to bet me, no, I will require odds on week 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. But
we could also look at the dynasty trade that you made with me for Justin Fields.
I told Pete last year that I had already lost it because I was Trey Lance, but I sent a first. I was like, the most valuable asset is the first.
Hang on. So we got to think. We're in a weird spot here. Because so we need to figure out who's our QB2.
We should just take dimes, I think.
Yeah, I think we should
just do dimes and be done.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess dimes.
Or we could take Mitchell and push.
Ben, what order would you do this in?
I would probably take Jones, but I didn't know about the injury guarantee stuff. I would have locked up Jones before knowing that, but I don't know.
I think we need Jones on this team.
Like we're just betting on him at this point. Yeah. Given that we're betting on him. Also, hey, we get Giants Ravens week 15.
Oh, look at that. Daniel Jones does double stack. What could go wrong?
Dude, if you felt better about Jones, I would have a ton of this because
I've been taking a lot of him because I'm trying to tell myself stories now that what's the deal with the injury guarantees? Like, is it that he isn't able to play in 2025? Does it have to be that serious? Like, what if it's just like a minor injury? Is it will they talk themselves into it?
Are great backdoor receivers. I saw you guys have a Hyatt and Slade and bet, but like you have Hyatt, Slade, and Wandale. Obviously, we all like Neighbors early. Like it's a
Tyrone Tracy's a super fun guy to add. So I've done a lot of Wandale, Tyrone, and Daniel Jones lately.
It's like in the ETR stack. If you could just,
you guys are with me on the Hyatt. You guys have Hyatt at 180 to leg up 214. Love it.
Yeah, you got bet on these year 2 wide receivers, right?
Yeah, they never disappoint.
176 Darius Slayton, just ranking bag defending by Karain with that bet.
That's why I made the bet because the reports are he's starting over Hyatt.
We do have Slayton ahead of Hyatt, but we basically have them the same.
Yeah, they're not letting their bias seep in and tank their Hyatt rating.
We have them both ahead of ADP. We have like all the Giants wide receivers ahead of ADP.
Yeah. I mean, we did
trust in Dayball a little bit. Like things have. It's hard to say if they've been very unlucky or their Dayball's just not that good, but there's a chance that things could come together and it'd be a lot better than people realize, I think.
Yeah.
Do we need a 4th running or a 5th running back here?
I think.
Or do you want to take the stack?
It's probably responsible, but I don't think we need it. So one of the things I saw in the week 17 too is like I think the hyper fragile teams did better than people thought last year, but I think that there were also a lot of builds that were kind of like this where they were like lower cost hyper fragile teams.
Yeah, I guess you're just saying Pacheco and White, we treat them like 2nd and 3rd round picks, basically.
Which is kind of the bet with them, is that they stay healthy, they just get a ton of touches, and you're happy with them.
It looks thin to me as I just stare at these names, but
a sad fucking running back room.
It looks real thin.
Are we sure any of those players are good? I mean, I think Tajay Spears is good.
Tajay Spears is good, yeah.
We got one.
I mean, Pacheco was on one of the highest EV week 17 teams last year.
He doesn't even have an ACL.
Our best running backs got no ACL.
I say we find a running back.
Take
DH, who I normally take here.
There's one running back. There's 2 running backs that I definitely would take here.
Who are they? There's a bunch that we could take.
Please tell me who they are.
Bigsby,
I'm
Estime.
to even say.
Have I
Dude,
heard
Alexander Madison is draftable in this range. Like, I've never liked Alexander Madison, but he's gonna play, and he goes in the 18th round of drafts.
I mean, I think CEH and Foreman are pretty good.
Do you think
But I know
CH even
Pat
with
was worried about
Pacheco?
Foreman, but
What about this
You're trying to
Rasheen Ali
handcuff
guy? Were you guys hyping
Pacheco?
him
I
up? Taking
probably
zeros?
wouldn't handcuff. But when the prices are decent, like I honestly don't. I'm not an anti-handcuff person.
My case would be in a five-man build like this that has some real fragility at the top that we should be taking one of these guys that's a clear number 2, like Bigsby or Alexander Madison. The other guys you guys are naming are not clear number 2s. Like Deontay Foreman's
I
not.
honestly
I'm
think
good
we
with
just take
Bigsby.
CH. We just take CH and handcuff it. That's what we're.
He's a
trying
clear number 2. I
He's
don't
number
want to
2,
draft.
and we're trying to.
What's your vote, Leone?
I could go with either of these guys. I think these guys are in the range. I think Foreman's in the range.
I feel like
Madison's in the range.
we're making such a big bet on Pacheco. Like we need this dude to smash. Let's take another stab with Bigsby.
All right.
Yeah, I forgot that we had Pacheco. I definitely would not have wanted CH if we had Pacheco.
Sometimes
Bigsby's
it's
a
like
good
room-
bet.
I've taken some handcuffs when I get the guys past ADP, and
Sure.
Yeah.
I think it's good value. There's some weird
Yep.
playoff.
I got asked about this
So-
in a comment, and I went through it. I gave a really long reply this morning to this question. But I've done it with Zach Moss and Chase Brown before on a Burrow Chase team where I got both of them
That's better,
behind. And I did it on
better to
a
do it with
Mostert
those.
build with Jalen Wright because Mostert's already way too cheap if he's healthy.
Right. That's
And then also if Achane misses time, then you get Mostert and Jalen Wright probably both being valuable. Like
I've done it with both Dallas backs. I've done it with Javonte and
Yeah.
Jaleel. I think there's also like this build is the type of build where I'm more willing to do it because I'm just like, if I have Chiefs running back, and then I only have to fill one other running back with these other dudes, and the team is built around all the other positions. So like having Chiefs running back is not about upside, it's about floor because I win with all my other picks.
I even did it. I mean, I don't recommend doing this frequently, but like I got a 4th round Kyron, and then Corum fell like 20 picks after ADP, and I did it
That seems
there.
fine to me, yeah.
Yeah.
that one feels like more
all right.
handcuff.
It's more pure
It's more,
handcuffy,
yeah.
but I still think like guys just miss a couple weeks here and there.
Yep.
Like,
But like, I guess if that's like a 6 running back build or like a 7 running back build, I hate it. If it's a 5 running back build, I like it. You know, like that's to me, like I do that, I unlock another position. I'm like, I now for sure have a running back spot covered, and I'm going to spend an extra pick at receiver or tight end now.
Makes sense.
All right. Here's the team. It's in the books.
God, we
2592.
drafted 9 wide receivers still.
And we were almost going to take a 10th because we didn't like a running back. Lamar Jackson and Daniel Jones at quarterback. A little worried about these running backs. Isaiah Pacheco, Rachaad White, but for the audio listeners, Tajay Spears, Zach Charbonnet, and Tank Bigsby. Wide receivers, though, buckle up, guys. This is the good stuff. Jamar Chase, Malik Neighbors, DJ Moore, Roma Dunze, Tyler Lockett, Jermaine Burton, Troy Franklin, Wandale Robinson, and Devontae Walker. Tight ends, Brock Bowers and Dallas Goedert. Everything
That's
fine
nice.
except those running backs.
I enjoyed the second half of that team a lot.
Yeah.
Don't talk to me about the front half anymore.
My eyes are up here. No, just keep looking down here. Leone, it was a pleasure getting to draft with you today.
Yeah, I feel like you guys, you got to respect Rachaad White a little bit more, okay?
I you know what?
God damn, he's
I
gonna
love
smash
Rachaad White
now.
at pick 76.
Yeah, I do too.
I mean, he had a stretch near the end of the season with 18, 21, 21, 17 half PPR points. Like that's pretty darn good. Like,
I mean,
I understand he's a dead zoney type back, but
Oh yeah.
again, like 7th round.
Yeah, no, I mean, this is where he was going last year before we knew that he would be a workhorse. So I'm with you. I mean, in the 7th, I'm in. I mean, the dead zone has basically ended. The opportunity cost of wide receiver has shifted dramatically at that point.
Yeah. I think to Gret, like the 2v2 is like if we go Pitts like Gretsch was pushing there, then you really get to enjoy the Rachaad White value, and then you flip the Bowers pick to a 0 running
No, I
back.
still would have said Bowers. Well, if it was me, I still would have said Bowers. I would put the Goddard pick.
It's just because you
Right,
podcast
Goddard,
with Sean,
Goddard.
dude.
Yeah, no, that one is because I podcast with Sean. No, that one is.
No, it's Chase Brown if you flip the
Oh,
Dallas
nice.
Goddard.
Yeah,
So it's,
Chase Brown would have been fun.
Got
So
it
it would
for
have been
Brown.
Chase Brown, Pitts versus Pacheco, Goddard. That's the 2v2.
I like the Brown Pitts.
But you also, within that 2v2, you don't have the benefit of knowing you're getting Rachaad White at pick 76.
Fair.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So we could have
that
taken JSN there.
Yeah. All right. Anything else you guys want to promote? Leone, when should they keep an eye out for that BBM stuff you were referencing earlier?
Yeah, I'm hoping next week for the finals thing, and then maybe middle end of June for like the fuller manifesto. I know I'm up against the clock a bit. It won't be nearly as robust as last year, but I just kind of wanted to refresh everything. And in general, I think like builds like we have today, I know like maybe aren't exactly what you'd set out to do, but I think all the stuff I see is like if you're flexible and you make the capital work and you're like somewhat smart with correlating, it's like not bad to have like these different types of builds and exposures.
Yeah.
Sure.
It's kind of fun because we basically are trying to play an elite tight end build through the tight ends that people aren't doing that with normally, and play like most like Pacheco, Rachaad White drafters are probably not having a 5 running back room with Spears, Sharps, and Bigsby, right? Like we are trying to fit a different structure to the player targets that are normally there. Gretch, anything else in your neck of the woods other than checking the stealing signals? You have that article out as well about ambiguous situations.
That was like scenario, like upside scenarios, basically. Called it perfect storm candidates for Monster 2024 seasons is ones that it feels like a lot of things could be moving in the right direction for sort of outlier outcomes that we were talking about, outlier outcomes, kind of things you're looking for. But yeah, that's the Stealing Signals Substack, Stealing Bananas, and then the Stealing Signals YouTube that we were talking about earlier. Go subscribe over there for more Jake Ferguson FUD. All you Jake Ferguson, let's go unsubscribe.
Wow, Gretch builds up the YouTube channel and then wiping out all the subscribers.
Dude,
like Jake Ferguson.
There's a lot of Jake Ferguson fans, so we'll see how much
you might regret that. You're gonna be begging for him.
Yeah,
come back, Jake Ferguson fans. I lied. I'll be nice to Jake Ferguson.
I think it was Michael Jordan who once said even Jake Ferguson drafters buy tennis shoes. So you gotta be careful there. What about you, Crane?
Yeah, legendaryupside.com. Going to have a lot of content about Jake Ferguson, so go ahead and sign up over there if you're into Jake Ferguson. Just probably the #1 Jake Ferguson site on in the industry, I would say at this point. I'm working on an article that I'm hoping to have out early next week on the running back landscape and kind of just like, it's sort of the wide receiver landscape, but looking at the early round running backs through the lens of can we get this profile later? Is this price a historical anomaly, and what is the wide receiver opportunity cost? Kind of interesting way to sort of just figure out how to attack the running backs early, which I think we do want to do. But as we saw last year, if you attack too heavily, it didn't work. So I think kind of picking your spots is going to be important this year.
Awesome. For me, Randomizer returns tonight, having Matt Harmon on. That'll be 8 p.m. Eastern on my YouTube channel. And also I'm going to have a video up, I think tonight on the Deposit Kingdom channel. I did another kind of draft challenge experiment. And this one was I drafted the top available player by ADP through 5 rounds and then figured it out. So I did not touch the draft until it was through 5 rounds. Definitely gotten a few interesting spots because of it, but letting the draft room come to you in the most literal sense with that challenge. So keep an eye out for that. Otherwise, ADP chasing will be back, I assume, right, guys? Pat, on Monday, 3:30
Yeah, we'll be
normal
back
time.
Monday. Yep.
Monday. And go get your That's Fair. I added tanks. Someone wanted tanks. So the tank tops, I'm partial to the pocket tees for this specific shirt, but check those out in the Ship Chasing store. And thank you again to Leone for joining us. We'll see you guys next time on Ship Chasing.